Uncle Eddie was born, I was a little jealous, so I let him go downstairs in the stroller.
How old were you when Uncle Eddie was born?
7.
And you were the baby up until
I
then?
was the baby of the family until he came along.
And you purposely pushed him down the stairs in the stroller?
We played red light stop, hide and seek, kick the can,
Oh yeah, it's a good
and
game.
hopscotch. Those are the things we played in the evening under the arc light, the street light, until 9 o'clock.
And then you had to come in?
You had to go home. Uncle Joe took us down to South Greensburg, and we watched the circus unload. Took all the animals out, and they all strolled up through Hilltop. Movies, we went to the movies. It didn't matter. We sometimes stayed there and watched it 3 times. We got 10 cents for lunch, and I would save 5 cents to go skating. We'd go roller skating down to Sweet Hill, and we would pay one of my friend's brothers 10 cents to drop us off there. One day, my friends and I decided to walk to Jeanette. So we did.
And how far is that?
About, 5 miles? Had no idea even how to get there. But we did. And when I came home that night, Grandma said, "Oh my," she said, "your face is so red, don't you feel good?" And I said, "Well, we had gym outside today, and I got a sunburn." The prom, I borrowed a gown. And after the prom, we rode a plane. Don't ask me where.
A plane?
A plane. We got on a plane. Took a ride on a plane somewhere. Airplane.
After your prom?
Mm-hmm.
Who'd you go to the prom with?
Pat. Who else?
Sounds like you went to the prom with Daddy Warbucks.
When I was 13, Grandpap's relatives from Waterbury came to see us, and they took me back with them, and I spent the summer in Waterbury.
Where's Waterbury?
Connecticut. It was Grandpap's sister, and I hated it.
Oh, you did not like it?
I did not like it. They made me eat squash, stuff like that, you know. Wasn't used to that.
But that was supposed to be a fun thing for you to go there for the summer?
I guess. I used to babysit for $1 a night, regardless how many hours it was. After supper, we would clear the table, and Grandpap would sit there with his wine and deck of cards, and he would play cards by himself all night long. He would put peaches in his wine. He also smoked a pipe that had horrible smell, those denobiles. My grandfather lived behind us in a little house, he and Grandma, and every time we would go over there, he had a bag of candy, and he would give us a piece of candy. And if I did the dishes for him, he would give me 10 cents to go to the movies. I would go to South Greensburg, which is, 2.5 miles away. And it took 3 cents on the streetcar to go down. And sometimes I would keep the 3 cents. And walk. Yeah, it wasn't far. I was Betsy Ross when I was in school. I played her. And I played Sleeping Beauty. And that takes care of my childhood.
Granny, tell us about your parents.
My parents, there was quite an age difference. Grandma came over from Italy when she was 5 years old with her mother and dad. My dad had already been here, and he was like 16 years old. And he was a boarder. They called them boarders in those days, people that stayed with you. And he stayed with Grandma and Grandpap, and then he and Grandma eloped.
And how old was she when they eloped?
About 14 or 15.
And did her parents, were they okay with that?
I would imagine so. I don't know.
What were your parents' names?
My dad's name was Saverio, Samuel. And my mother's was Pasquale, and it was Mary. If Chucky had been a girl, he would have been called Patsy, because that's what Pasquale means in American.
Did they leave family in Italy when they came here?
Well, the only one would have been Grandma and Grandpa.
Right.
My grandma and grandpa. Yes, of course. But my grandfather made a couple trips back
He
and
did?
forth. Mm-hmm. Quite a few of them did that.
But your grandfather would have been living in Italy.
Yeah.
And so he lived in Italy but came here to visit?
They would go back and forth. I don't know the reason for it. And then the last time Grandma said, "That's it, I'm going with you." So she came too.
Tell us what do you remember most about your parents?
There's always food on the table. And of course, my older brothers and sisters, I do not remember too well as being at home the same time I was. They were mostly married. So every Saturday night, Grandma and Grandpap and Uncle Eddie and me, we would go to the Grand Theater. It was a movie, and it was all about cowboys. And then we would go next door to a bar and have a root beer. We had root beer, but Grandpap, of course, had a beer or whatever. And that was our Saturday night outing.
What did your dad do for work?
Walworth Valve Company. Everybody worked at Walworth. Laborer.
How about when Grandma worked for the mafia?
Tell me about your dad's personality. Tell me about your relationship with your dad.
Well, my dad, of course, spoke Italian. And
Did he speak English?
Yes, enough to converse, yeah. And he read the paper, and he had a terrific vocabulary of swear words.
And that's been passed on down, right?
It's been passed on down. My dad loved opera, and he used to sit in this one chair in the living room with a little radio beside him, and he would tune in on this station that had opera on, and he enjoyed that. When Aunt Clara was working, she bought new furniture for the living room, and my dad refused to sit in there.
He was fine with his old furniture.
He wanted the old furniture there. He didn't want that new furniture. A little stubborn.
A little.
You know.
That also got passed down.
Cross that out. Cross that out, Lena.
Tell us about your mom.
My mother was a very sweet woman. She never gave anybody any trouble. Well, she had a nice fat hand that she used quite often. She didn't need a ping pong paddle or anything like that. You got slapped when you needed it.
Your mom was a midwife?
Oh, to all the women in Hilltop. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tell us your fondest memory of your parents.
We had great Christmases. They always managed to get something. You know, we weren't rich, that's for sure, but they always remembered us. And of course, my being the youngest of the family at that time, I was spoiled. And my older sisters tell me that I was a spoiled brat. And every Sunday we would gather at Grandma's, and everybody came home. And some were there for dinner, some weren't. But everybody managed to get home to see each other. Uncle Mikey was the oldest, and he was 25 years older than Uncle Eddie. Uncle Mikey, Uncle Frankie, Uncle Joe, Uncle Tony, they were all married. So I didn't remember too much of them being home. And then Aunt Ellen, and Elmer, Aunt Clara, me, and then Uncle Eddie.
Was he hurt in the incident with the stroller and the stairs?
I don't know. I didn't care. And
There's-
Claire and I were close. We were very close. And she just adored Cindy and Chucky. Oh, they
And-
practically raised them.
The difference in age between you and Aunt Claire was what?
I'd say about 4 years. And Ellen and then Elm River, they were closer together.
Why do you think your parents had so many children?
It was a thing to do. Everybody had large families. I mean, you very seldom heard of just a couple. All the ones from up on Hilltop, they're all large families.
Do you have any memories that stand out of all of your siblings?
Well, Aunt Clara was coming from a circus one day up on Hilltop. She was in a hurry, got hit with a car. And she was very, very bad. I mean, when they took her to the hospital, they said her brains were shilling. So she had a rough time.
And she made a full recovery from that?
Yeah.
Granny, tell us about the house that you grew up in.
It was a nice house. There were 3 bedrooms. One was my mom and dad. One was for all the girls, and one was for all the boys. And then, of course, Uncle Eddie was little, so he would come sleep with us. When I was working, I'd go to town, to make bank deposits or something, and Uncle Eddie was the mailman. And if we saw someone and we were talking to them, he would tell them I was the first girl he ever slept with. All in all, it was a happy whole household.
How about your sisters-in-law?
They were all okay. We didn't particularly care when Uncle Tony separated from Aunt Catherine.
You liked Aunt Catherine?
Oh, she was a doll. She was something else. You couldn't help but love her.
What about whenever you were a little girl? Did you have chores that you had to do?
No,
No.
I was spoiled.
Granny, tell us about school. You went to school in Greensburg?
Yes, it was about 3 streets away. 1st grade to 8th grade.
Okay.
And then I went to high school.
At a different building.
Yeah, oh yeah, that was downtown, across from the cathedral. It was very close to home, and we all knew one another. We were all, kids that grew up together. Teachers were very nice, and we had plays, and we had parties. We went to school, not like the kids today, whenever it's an inch of snow, that they cancel the school. I mean, we went to school and we were cold. I can remember my legs being purple, but we certainly did not cancel school, nor did we cancel when it was too hot. That's ridiculous. But kids today are spoiled. Spoiled rotten. I didn't particularly care for high school. I mean, everybody had their little groups and stuff, I was roller skating, and he came in to the roller skating rink, and somehow or other we got to talking, and then I invited him to the junior prom, and that's when it all began.
Now, Pap was a couple years older than you?
3.
3 years older than you.
Yeah.
So he was probably
He was out of school,
18, 19, and you were 16, 15, 16?
probably, yeah.
I mean, do you remember the day that you met Pap?
Yeah, I was sitting on a bench, and he came in and sat beside me, thinking I was my girlfriend. And he realized that it wasn't her, it was me. We got to talking, and that's how it all started. But he was not a roller skater. I was, and I used to love.
He was there to watch you.
Yeah.
What did Pap look like when he was 19, 20?
Good looking, curly hair, tall, thin, kind of bluish eyes. Very nice.
So you
Very
were
bright.
attracted to him as soon as you saw him?
Yeah, I'd say so. We would go to movies quite often, and we always went to Docks. It was a place down in Greensburg where you had ham barbecues. They were known for that. And milkshake. We had that almost every night.
How long after you met Pap did you date before y'all got married?
A couple of years.
You said earlier that your mom loved Pap and Pap loved your mom.
Uh-huh.
How about your dad? Did your dad approve of Pap?
Oh, yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
And your brothers?
Yeah, oh, everybody did. Yeah, he was class clown, they said.
After your wedding, did you have a honeymoon?
Yes, we left that night after the wedding. I mean, that evening, we got on a train and we went to Chicago and spent the day in Chicago. And then we took the train there to Sioux City.
Do you remember what you did in Chicago?
I'll never tell. I went with Chuck to the Army base, and I was there for 5 weeks.
Okay, and that's
then
when
I
y'all.
came back.
That's when you had first gotten married.
Yeah, and then I came back to Greensburg and lived at home for 2 years
While he was.
in the service overseas.
Okay, what do you remember about like those first 5 weeks of being married?
Oh, well, it was very enjoyable. I mean, we had a couple of buddies that were in the service with him, and we ate out every night. And we went to a movie. We went to a show. They put on a show, the soldiers. Well, we rented an apartment or a couple of rooms there, whatever. And it was pretty far from town. There was a popular place that everybody went to called Rathskeller's.
Was he afraid to go when he left?
No.
He wasn't. Were you afraid for him to go?
Didn't think of it that way.
You
no.
didn't? Okay.
No.
Did the other guys have wives as
The
well?
one did, yeah. And she came to visit whenever her husband was in the service at the same time as Pap. Ethel. Yeah. She came and stayed at our place for a couple of days.
Here in Greensburg.
Greensburg, yeah.
And what was that time like? I mean, so for 2 years you were married to Pap, but he was overseas. And you
yeah.
never saw him. I mean, he didn't come home for any stretch
no,
of time.
no,
2 years
overseas,
he was gone.
Yeah. And we would write. I didn't write as often as I should have, because I hated that. But he would write almost every day.
Do you remember the day that he got back from
Yeah.
the war?
Yeah, his aunt went to drive me to the airport to meet him in Pittsburgh. I don't know whether she got the message wrong or what, but he was supposed to come in at 10 o'clock p.m. And she said it was 10 o'clock a.m. So it was a long day of wait.
What was that like when you saw him?
Oh, yeah, joy.
Did he look the same?
Yeah, uh-huh, yeah.
Did he cry?
He did, yeah.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, he did. I didn't.
You were married how long?
67 years.
67 years. And what advice would you give us or a young couple getting married to make their marriage last 67 years?
Do things together. Don't go this way and that way. And of course, the old saying, don't be angry when you go to bed. Make up.
What about when y'all would have arguments or disagreements? Who was the one that was the peacemaker?
Probably Papa.
Can you remember, like, getting in a big fight about something, like a big argument?
Not really.
No.
No, we agreed, or else we came to an agreement. We lived a simple but happy life.
How long were you and Pap married before you became pregnant?
6 years. Well, he was away for 2,
Yes.
so 4 years.
How'd you feel when you found out you
I
were
was
pregnant?
glad. I mean, I didn't have a hard time becoming pregnant, so I was very happy. And at that time, everybody was having babies.
How did Pap feel?
Oh, delighted. He wanted to be his dad, but he wanted a little girl. I have the picture that he carried around and with him overseas of a little girl. He always wanted a little girl. And then he got your mom.
How did Mom get her name?
I had a friend who had a friend, and her name was Cynthia, and I thought it was pretty.
How about Uncle Chuck?
Oh, we had a million names picked out, but ended up with Charles.
Was Pap proud to have a son that
Oh,
that had the same name?
to this day, oh man, yes, that was his baby.
So tell us about Mom and Uncle Chucky when they were kids.
They were good. They were good kids. I can't say they weren't. Cindy liked to stay up till midnight, and Chucky at 9 o'clock would start sucking his thumb, and he was ready for bed. You know, completely different for sleeping. There were so many kids in our neighborhood that they didn't have to depend on each other for companionship. They had the playground, and they had the Y. They would go to the Y for swimming. They had their little groups, you know. The boys would go up in the woods and build things. And the one thing they built, they all went home and got their father's nails and went back up and built this tree house or something. And if it would have fallen on somebody, it would have killed them because it was so loaded down with nails. But they found their thrill in doing that kind of stuff. I think they had a happy childhood. And we would go on vacation. We would save a little money each week, and then we would go to Wildwood for the week. The kids enjoyed it. Pap didn't have to work, and I didn't have to do anything. So we stayed in a motel.
And you went out to eat out in restaurants.
Mm-hmm. And there was a diner that the hotel owned. It was right next door, and the kids would go there on their own and have breakfast or lunch or whatever. And then we would go up to the strip. It was a couple of miles, and spend time up there. It wasn't an expensive vacation, but they enjoyed it.
And that was in the summertime?
Mm-hmm. And I always made it the last week in August so I could endure the summer and know that school was starting soon.
When you built your house up in Northmont, all the houses were also brand new at the time? Like it was like a new neighborhood?
Yes. We were about the third or fourth person to start, to buy. In fact, we went with Aunt Eleanor and Uncle Jack to look at them. And we ended up buying, and they didn't. And then we were supposed to get a house down the street further.
Was Mom born at this time?
Uh-huh.
And Uncle Chucky?
Uh-uh.
And y'all
then
were
we
looking
only
for
had
some...
2 bedrooms.
Okay.
And then we had this cancellation, so we moved up further on the street. We made some good friends. Nobody was angry with anybody.
Do you remember what you paid for your house on Glenview Avenue?
$88.50,
$8,850.
everything. Mm-hmm.
And you financed that?
Mm-hmm.
You borrowed that money?
You had to make the monthly payment with your wages. I think it was like $53 or something like that. Included your taxes and all that stuff.
Tell us about your fondest memory of your house.
Well, it was nice moving into a nice brand new home. Of course, we only had the 2-bedroom. When Chucky was born, Pap made 2 bedrooms out of the one. We had birthdays. When it was somebody's birthday, like one of your kids, you would call all the kids in the neighborhood, and it was plenty of kids. And they'd sit on the bank or whatever, and they'd have ice cream or whatever, and that was their birthday. We had communions, we would have dinners, confirmation.
How about the bar in the basement that Pap built? Were there any memories? I mean, did y'all have people over and hang out down there?
We had a lot of fun down there, yes. An awful lot. We had different groups, and we had fun down there.
And Pap, if there was ever something at the house, he was able to fix it?
Tried to, yeah.
One of them was a Christmas tree, wasn't it?
Yeah. Threw it down over the hill after Christmas, and it took root. Well, kids were out playing, and he came home for something or other, and he was in a rush, and the storm door was locked in the basement, and he was in a hurry, and he grabbed the handle and went through the thing.
And it was made of actual glass.
Yeah. Of course, it was during the day, nobody home, and just one of the neighbors was home, Mr. Capizzi, and he drove us to the hospital, but drove us crazy because he was kept going around and around and around to find a parking place. And all we wanted to do was to be left off. After graduation, I worked at the Irwin Gas Building on Main Street, and they had the old-fashioned telephone where you plugged it in, I stayed there until I got married. That was short. And then when I came back, I got a job at Walworth, where everybody worked. It was in the plant office. And then after the war, everybody got laid off, like people like me, because they wanted the men to come back. And then I guess I was just a housewife, and then I worked at a little store. I have 10 places that I've shut down.
What do you mean?
It closed up. Yeah.
So we shouldn't hire you.
I worked the receptionist part there, Raniere's. Wilson Baum, I worked there. That was a mortgage company. I worked there for quite a few years. Of course, the Rao Agency.
Which was your favorite?
I guess the Rao Agency.
The people you worked with, you liked them?
Yeah, like Kathy. Well, I said, you put a computer on my desk and I'm out of here.
So they didn't do it?
Yeah, they did.
They didn't do it, and then they became the 10th one that closed down.
Yeah, right. Bill was good and bad. I mean, he was very good to me, but he also had a temper too.
What's the most important thing in your mind about being a parent?
Being able to guide them, tell them to love each other, which works sometimes.
Discipline at the house, was it a combination of you and Pap? Was it Pap? Was it you?
Me.
It was you.
Me.
And was that common in
Oh yeah.
the Italian
Oh yeah.
culture?
Yeah. We didn't have time out and stuff like that.
But what about the female being the disciplinarian? Was that common?
Yes.
Why?
Because the Italians were, they were different. I mean, the fathers, they're mostly all Italians, and they didn't speak too much English and all. And they didn't worry about the kids as much. I mean, as long as they had food on the table and they were happy. I mean,
So their role was kind of like provider, and then the nurturer and the disciplinarian was the
mother.
the mother.
Yeah.
What's the most trouble Mom ever got in?
I don't know about it.
How about Uncle Chucky?
They had a teacher that they used to constantly pick on for doing things to get him mad. Not mad, but they would tease him. To this day, they are friends. He was on the road before he was 16. He was playing on the road, so he wasn't at home to get into troubles, but that's when he started playing with Ken. He grew up in a hurry.
Is there anything as a parent that you would do differently?
I don't think so. Maybe they would think so, but I don't know. I think they grew up the average way.
Granny, how would you describe Pap-Pap?
Pleasant, kind-hearted, always looking out for the other person rather than himself. Was not cheap. He paid his way. Tall and good-looking, curly hair and blue eyes. In the later years, he put on a few pounds, not that much, and the hair got thinner, but he still had the same disposition. Very comical with his remarks. I mean, he made people laugh.
What did you admire the most about Pap-Pap?
His love for me.
When you met Pap-Pap, did you know right away that he was the one?
I was too young to know.
What was the biggest challenge about being married to Pap-Pap?
Wasn't a challenge.
Pap-Pap's sister Josephine, were you close with her?
Yes, she was exactly like him.
Did he look up to Josephine like a typical big sister, little brother kind of relationship?
She kind of felt responsible for him.
How about Pap-Pap's time in the war? Did he ever talk about it, his experience?
Depending on who he was talking to. I mean, you know, if they had been in the war also, they had a lot to compare. But otherwise, no, he didn't talk too much about it.
I mean, overall, would he have enjoyed his time in the service or was happy that it was over?
He hated the service. Never even collected his belongings when he was discharged. He was anxious to get home. He just left his belongings there.
Did Pap-Pap always enjoy music? When did he start playing the organ?
He always enjoyed music. We had a piano. He played the piano quite a bit. We bought our first organ and he played it constantly. And then we upgraded it a couple times. No, he didn't read music. And he played one song after another without stopping for hours.
Did you enjoy listening to it?
Yeah, yeah,
And he enjoyed playing it.
yeah, that was his relaxation.
So if your great-grandchildren could know one thing about Pap-Pap, what would that be?
He would have loved to have seen them, be a part of them, because he loved every one of them.
Tell us about the thing about Mom and the thing about Uncle Chucky that you're most proud of.
They both turned out very well. No drugs, no cigarettes, no tattoos.
The important things, huh?
Yeah.
They were good. They were good kids. They were. I can't complain about that.
Do you see Pap-Pap's qualities in them?
Oh, yeah. Very much so. Cindy has all the artistic qualities that her dad had. I mean, she could draw, she could do anything. And Chucky, of course, took up the music. Trump. No, Kennedy, because he was a family man. Enjoyed watching him become president. I think he did a lot of good.
Had nothing to do with the fact that he was Catholic?
Yeah, I guess so. I was washing windows, I think, or something. And, heard it on the radio. And then I think Mrs. Suke came over. And of course, everybody, you know, was up in arms. It was on all the news. Couldn't believe it. Vaguely, we were sitting around a table, and a friend of Aunt Clara's came in and told us about it, and we were all shocked. This has been the worst. I've had a lot of broken bones, but this has been the worst, contending with other things to go with it, like this. Having a happy marriage and bearing 2 wonderful children. And of course the grandchildren that came along.
Any grandchildren in particular that you're the most proud of?
Oh, yes, of course. Living with comedian. Well, leaving my home, having to move out and live a new life here at New Haven. It was hard when Grandma would come to live with us 2 months out of the year. Not that she was any trouble, but it was different. He had Jenny Boyd and I met Dick Van Dyke in New York City. He was sitting on a couch or a bench eating an ice cream cone. And so we went over, sat down, had a picture taken with him. After the operation that I had, when I woke up and found out that it was over, then I felt that life would go on. So the fire whistle blew. We were eating around the table. We all rushed out to see what was going on. When we came back, Coquette had helped herself to everybody's pork chop on the table. So Cindy had her pattern taped all of the with pins, and she took all the pins out.
And she just ripped the
She ripped the paper. Oh yeah, New York's always been my dream. Yeah, and we went up there. Not Pap and me. I went up with a busload of girls, and we went to a show and all.
And what did you love about New York?
Bright lights and music and entertainment. That's the life. Probably to Italy and you know, with Pap, and he would have been able to tell me things. We were supposed to go. I wanted to go, and Pap would have said, "I've seen it, and I don't want to see it again." To be a chorus line dancer.
That's like a rockette?
Continue living the life you have and enjoy every minute of it. And love your spouse and children.
Thanks for doing this. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, you're done?
Mm-hmm.